Today to everyone, and welcome to today's lesson. So, just like we discussed in the previous class, uh, for in terms of 30, we have already discussed all of the particles, be it the dependent or the independent particles. The ones which this particular particle is called is translated as alternative particles, and there is a reason for it to be so. The main reason being that these particular particles do not belong to either the dependent or the independent particle, but they function in a way that they can be used as an alternative for few of those particles, about which we will understand when we learn about the usage cases of these particles. And we're going to discuss the usage case in the next class. So today's class is quite, in comparison to the next lesson that we're going to have, today's class will be quite simple. It only has to do with the usage, only has to do with the introduction of the particles, and somewhat since this particular particle, even though it doesn't belong in the category of the dependent particles, it follows the same rule, meaning that since it's a dependent particle, it is a particle that will depend on the suffix letter in order to associate itself with a name or a word. So therefore, it is a dependent particle in this manner, but still it does not count as a dependent particle in the understanding of the dependent particle in the text 30. So before we go to the lesson, let us begin with the verse of dedication, and then the line of dedication, and then a small verse. So the first line, which is the line of dedication. So today we dedicate this class to Lord Manjushri. So Namo Guru Manju Koshaya. And this is the same line. So this is the same line that is used as the verse of worship for this particular text. Those of you who have been reciting this text and practicing this text, you know that the first line is Namo Guru Manju Koshaya. So in the understanding of the text, it will be referred to as the verse of worship. It will be referred to as the line of worship or a line of taking refuge. And here it will be understood as a line of dedication. So we dedicate today's class to Manjushri. So this is the line of dedication. Now the verse. So the verse today that we have is Yunden Semki Mashela Semni Namdo Truai Tsiki Jigden Drumbala Trua Tsiki Tsingmai. So let me repeat this again. Yunden Semki Mashela Semni Namdo Truai Tsiki Jigden Drumbala Trua Tsiki Tsingmai. Okay, so the first line says, I prostrate to you, O Lord Manjushri. So this is a direct line. And the meaning of this verse that I have, it says that the mind does not comprehend the knowledge, for it is obscured by thoughts. And here the thoughts, when we talk about thoughts, we are talking about the mundane thoughts, or we're talking about the afflicted mind. So the mind does not comprehend the knowledge, for it is obscured by the thoughts. The samsara is fabricated by the words. It is the illusion of words, and words are not an illusion. So what this final line, it says that because mind is obscured by thoughts, and these thoughts arise due to illusion of words. But just because these thoughts arise due to the illusion of words, one should not understand that the words themselves are illusion. For the words are what that fabricates the entire samsara. So with this verse, let us begin today's class. So, situation, so alternative particles. So let me read the verse regarding the alternative particles. Situation so nganama adan rala tametar shingshe sheo shenashi kada padan taratar jingje jeo jenaji satar mise shemato shingshi sheo shenato. Let me repeat this once again. Situation so nganama adan rala tametar shingshe sheo shenashi kada padan taratar jingje jeo jenaji satar mise shemato shingshi sheo shenato. So this is the verse from the 30 that not only introduces us to the particles, the alternative particles, it also tells us about the rules pertaining the association of particles with names. That is, what suffix letter will each particle follow? So therefore, we also have the rule pertaining the association of particle with word on the basis of suffix letter, as well as the introduction of the particles. So as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there are 14 alternative particles. So there are 14 alternative particles. And just like I mentioned earlier, these alternative particles, they can be used as an alternative to the particles that we discussed, which are part of the 30, which are the particles that we studied until the previous class. So first we studied the dependent particles, starting from the recompound particle. And then we ended at the final independent particle, which is the negation that we discussed in previous class. So to this point, we see that this entire set of particles that we have studied till this point is considered to be the particles which is the core teaching of the 30. Just like we have discussed in few of our previous classes, few of our first classes, we discussed the pledge of composing. So the author, which is Yangchen Dorje, the author of the Tree of Excellent Speech, he pledged that the reason why the very pledge he took for composing this text, he said that in this text, he shall state the very essential teaching of the 30 of Tunmi, and it shall not be stated in a very elaborated manner, but in a very concise manner. So this is what he pledged. And so we know that the essential teaching of the 30 of Tunmi is of the teaching of the name, word, statement, and then of the connective particles, and the connective particles and the grammatical cases. So till this point, we have already studied all the 8 grammatical cases. We have studied all the connective particles, the dependent and the independent particles. In terms of the name, we have studied the first grammatical case. In terms of the word, we have studied the first grammatical case. And in terms of statement, we have studied all of the rest of the grammatical case, plus those other particles and the usage cases. And the basis of the name, which we have already studied, is the basis of the name are the basic sounds or the letter. So we started from the letter. We said that there are 2 types, vowel and consonant. Then we went on to classify the consonant in its group. And then afterward, we started with the first grammatical case. So till this point, we have studied probably almost every one of the essential teaching of the 30. The one which we are still we have to study is the usage of some punctuations. But this alternative particle, it is something that is stated in the tree of excellent speech, but not in the 30. So therefore, even though it follows the concept of dependent particle, it will not be considered to be any of the dependent particle because it is not in the 30. It is not discussed in the 30. That's the reason. Okay, so now we have seen the number of particles. We have seen the number of particles that we are studying here, the number of particles that we have. Now we will discuss, we'll also discuss the rules pertaining the association of these particles with these words on the basis of suffix letter. So this same verse in English is, for the alternative particles, the suffix letters nga, na, ma. So we know that there are 10 suffix letters. So in total, there are 30 consonants in Tibetan, out of which 10 are considered to be suffix letters, 20 are considered to be pure foundation of name letters. And then out of the 10 suffix letters, we get 5 prefix letters and 2 post-suffix letters that we have already discussed. So here we are talking about the suffix letters. So suffix letter, the letter that comes after the foundation of name, when letters are combined to form a name or a word. So for the alternative particles, the suffix letter, so there are 10 suffix letter, which is ka, nga, ta, na, pa, ma, a, ra, la, sa. So these 10 are the 10 suffix letters, out of which the suffix letter nga, na, ma. So if there is a word or a name which has a suffix letter of nga, na, ma, then these are associated with particles xing, she, sheo, shena, shik. So any word or name which has the suffix letter nga, na, ma will be associated with the particles xing, she, sheo, shena, shik. Then the suffix letter, any name or word with suffix letter ka, ta, pa, and the post-suffix letter ta. So post-suffix letters are post-suffix letter refers to the letter which follows the suffix letter. So the post-suffix letter ta, the suffix letter ka, ta, pa. If any word of name has this suffix letter, these 3 suffix letter, and the post-suffix letter ta, Then these are associated with particles jing, jie, jiu, jena, chik. Then finally, if a word has the suffix letter sa, except for the particle she, because she is not a particle. You can observe that in xing, xie, xiu, xiena, xik, we have 5 particles. In jing, jie, jiu, jena, chik, we have 5 particles. But for xing, xik, xiu, xiena, we have 4 particles. This is because for the case of xing and jing, we also have xie and jie, this one. But in case of xing, xik, xiu, xiena, we do not use this. And one primary reason is because we know that she is a name, a naming word that means that can be understood as she can be understood as awareness, and she can be also understood as to know. So and then the suffix letter ha, ra, la, and tame means the one which does not have any suffix letter. So even in those cases, as you can see, so in case we have words which have these 3 suffix letter plus ha and ra, la. So in total 6 suffix letters we have here. Nga, na, ma, ha, ra, la. With this, and then if we have the words or name without any suffix letters, those will be followed or associated with the post suffix letter, with the particles xing, xik, xiu, xiena, xik. So yes, that is the case. So not only this, we also have, so this seems to be yes, and without any suffix letter. So we have a name or word with suffix letter nga, na, ma, ha, ra, la. So these 6 suffix letters. Or if we have a name or word without any suffix letter, for example, if we have the name word, for example, a naming word like so, which means the teeth, we see that so doesn't have any suffix letter. So in those cases, it will be followed by xing, xie, xiu, xiena, xik. Now, in the second case, which is the particle jing, jie, jiu, jiena, chik, we understand that if a name or word has a suffix letter ka, ta, pa, or post suffix letter ta, then it will be followed by these jing, jie, jiu, jiena, chik. Now, for the final set of particles, it follows the word or name which has a suffix letter sa. But there is an exception here. The exception is that this set of particles does not have the particle she, meaning that we're not allowed to use the particle she. And therefore, in those cases, in case of sa, we can only use xing, xik, xiu, xiena, and we don't have she. So in that case, we see that when it comes to a usage where one is required to use a particle like che and she, it can be used alternatively. You can use she or che, because you cannot use she. And you'll understand that all of these 5 different particles are important. It is important to have a whole set of 5 particles, because each of these particles, as we can see in a set, there is 5 different types of particles. Each of these particles have different usage case. Some have multiple usage cases. So if you miss even a single particle, So you miss either one or two usage cases, which is not acceptable. So therefore, in those cases, you will not use she, but then you can use che or she, even if it's the suffix letter sa. That is an exception here, because it doesn't have its own. So you can use she or che. So therefore, now this is the meaning of the verse that we have. This verse, sikte shingsonga nama adarala tametar shingshi shio shinashi kada padang tadatar shingje jio jinachi sada mise shemato shingshi shio shenato. So this is the meaning of the verse, as you can see. So here you can see that not only did the verse introduce to the 14 alternative particles, it also functioned to provide the rules that dictates the association of these particles with a name on the basis of suffix letter. So now a general description of what is an alternative particles. The alternative particles are, though dependent particles, these particles are part of neither the dependent nor the independent particles. So we have learned this. So for probably now or almost 10 months, I think, we have been studying the tree of excellent speech. So in that duration, we have been talking the most about particles, connective particles, and in those we have been talking about the dependent particles, the independent particles. So the dependent particles, as we know, are the particles, the set of particles which are associated with the name on the basis of suffix letter or any other condition. But the case should be that it should have a certain criteria or requirement to be associated with a name. Thus not being independent, but dependent on that criteria, dependent on that particular criteria. But in most of the cases, we see that the criteria is simply the suffix letter of the name, on the basis of the suffix letter of the name. Whereas for the independent particles, we see that there is no criteria as such, that it can be associated with any name, but the only criteria is the usage cases. And we know that usage cases is common for the both of these particles. So it should be implemented or used on the basis of certain usage cases. It can only be used with certain statement, or it can be only used to express a certain statement. But this alternative particles, though they are particles which are mentioned in the tree of excellent speech, these are not particles which are mentioned in the text of 30. So therefore, alternative particles, though included in the text of the tree of excellent speech, are not particles stated in the text of 30 of Tumi Sambuddha. And that is the reason why it is neither dependent nor independent particle. But just because it is neither of them, it doesn't mean that it cannot have certain criteria to associate with name and word. And so, since alternative particles are dependent particles, not in the sense that it is dependent particles under the text of 30, but it's dependent particle because these particles are dependent upon the criteria that they can associate with a name or word on the basis of the suffix letter. And this is the criteria. And since these particles are bound by these criteria, they are not independent. They cannot associate with any name that they want. These particles have to follow a certain rule. And this is why it's the dependent particle. And this dependent particle just is just a title. It doesn't hold that much to say. It doesn't hold that much a sort of that much of a weight as saying dependent particles in case of those dependent particles that we have studied, like the recompound particles. These are dependent particles. These are dependent particles not only on the basis of the dependency on the base of the suffix letters, but they are also the dependent particles that are stated in the text. So this is alternative particles is a dependent particle only given this title because of its nature, that it follows or associates with name on the basis of suffix letter, and that it is bound by this particular criteria. That is the only reason why it is given the title of dependent particle. But if one is asked, is alternative particle a dependent particle under the text of 30, or either under the text of tree of excellent speech? One should say it is neither dependent nor independent in the text of 30 or the tree of excellent speech. But the name dependent particles were given to these alternative particles only on the characteristic or the nature that these associate with name or word on the basis of the suffix letter, and thus are bound by the criteria and are not independent to associate with any word or name that one would like to associate them with. So this is the reason. And the other thing, the direct translation of the word, the title "Xing" so would mean the particles such as "xing." But then this particular title doesn't give any understanding further than that to tell us that these are particles such as "xing, xie, xiu." The translation that I have done is on the basis of the usage case. Instead of the very particles, it is based on the usage case. Since these particles are used as an alternative to all of those dependent and independent particles, therefore, the translation has been made as alternative particle. So since this translation is not a direct translation, meaning that it's not the translation of the actual, it's not the direct translation of the actual title, so certain clarification is required. And therefore, the clarification here that I'm providing is that these are, for me, the reason why it was translated as alternative particles is that these particles do not have any new sort of usage case. They perform similar to some of the previous particles they have the same function as some of the previous particles that we have already studied. And since they function the same, these are simply alternative to those particles. And that is the reason why I have translated it as alternative particles on the basis of its usage case. Okay, so this is the general introduction to the alternative particles. And alternative particles, there are 14 alternative particles, as you have already seen here. The first set of 5 alternative particles are xing, xie, xiu, xena, xik. The second set of alternative particles are jing, jie, jiu, jiena, chik. And then the final set of alternative particles is xing, xik, xiu, xena. So in total, there are 14 alternative particles. And like I said, the set of 5 has a significance because all of these 5 different particles in a single set have their own usage case. For some, it also has multiple usage cases. So this is the alternative particle will be a particle for which we'll have the most number of usage cases. It won't be difficult because every one of these usage cases are usage cases that we have already studied in previous particles. It will only clarify which alternative which of these particles are alternative to the particles that we have already studied. So therefore, this we will discuss in the next class. So this is the general introduction to the alternative particles. Okay, so now the rule. So we have already studied this during the dependent particles. We have this particular way of progressing and understanding these particles. First, we introduce the particle, then we give a general introduction to the entire thing, and then afterwards we talk about the if it's a dependent particle, we talk about the rules of association of the particular particle on the basis of suffix letter or rules with the suffix letter O. So by that we understand the rules of which particle to use with which name. And then finally we talk about the usage case. Like I said, in this entire text of either it be the 30 or the tree of excellent speech, the hardest part is the usage case. And it's the most significant one also, because it tells us how to use it in the writing or speaking. It tells us where to use these particular particle. So we have both the direct usage case. Sometimes we also have inferential usage cases. So it is thanks to the texts which were later written as a commentary and some of the more analytical texts written on the Tibetan system of grammar by some great scholars, including scholars such as the Smriti Gyanakirti, who have authored the Armor of Speech. So therefore, usage cases become very important. But for Tsigtishing, or alternative particles, though we have probably few usage cases, all of those are already discussed in the previous classes. So the only thing that I will do is that I will just introduce which particle is used for which usage case. And then we can just connect these to the usage case that we have studied. And then we'll see which particle is alternative of which particles. So in this table, we see the rule of association of alternative particle with the suffix letter. So Tsigtishing so ki dai jorsul. So we know that dai jorsul or dajor means the rule pertaining the association of particles with the name on the basis of suffix letter. Why do we use the word da? Because we know that da refers to the sound, and this talks about the basic sound. When we talk about the basic sound, we talk about the letter. And since we know that the vowels have nothing to do with it, it has to be consonant. And in consonant, we see that it is particularly the sound of the suffix letter. So therefore, Daijosu refers to the association on the basis of the basic sound. And here, the particular type of basic sound we're talking about is consonant. Under consonant, we're talking about the suffix letter. So therefore, Daijosu, or association on the basis of sound. Basic sound, that is. So in this table here, we have Jinju, or the suffix letter. Here we have Tsigte, or the connective particle. So for the suffix letter, nga, na, ma, ha, ra, la. So these are the suffix letter. Name or word which have these suffix letter, or name which does not have any suffix letter, will be associated with the connective particle shing, she, sheo, shena, shik. Then, if we have name or word with suffix letter ka, ta, pa, and then yangju, which is the post suffix letter ta, also known as tata, also known as chaktar. We have discussed this many times previously. So tata, traktar, yongju ta. These three are synonymous. So if a name or word which has the suffix letter ka, ta, pa, and the post-suffix letter ta, these will be associated with the particle ching, che, jiu, jena, chik. And then in case of sa, except for the particle she, and then it's not that it does not have the usage case. It has the usage case. So in those cases, you can use she or che in place of she, because like I said, each of these 5 different has a significance, because each of these allow us to use it in a different usage cases, sometimes multiple usage cases for a single particle. So if we miss the same, so this seems to be quite, this is Xing, Shik, Xiu, Shena. Okay, so very sorry for this mistake. So in case of sa, except for she, we have all the 4. But when it comes to the usage case of the che and she, we just use it in place of she here. And it has a usage case, which we will discuss in the next class. But in any case, so now we have understood that for the first set, which is xing, shi, xiu, shena, shik, a name or word should have the suffix letter nga, na, ma, ha, ra, la. Or it should not have any suffix letter at all. For the second set of the particles, we jing, ji, jiu, jena, chik, the name or word should have suffix letter ka, ta, pa, or the post suffix letter ta. In case of this final set, xing, shik, xiu, shena, except for she, for which we can either use she or je, these follow the suffix letter sa. Since it is uncertain whether one can use she or je, meaning one can either use she or je, both of these are available. Therefore, we have not stated sa for either of these. If we would have stated ngana, mahara, la, and sa, the problem would be that we would be saying that it only goes with she. And then the other problem would be that sa does not follow any other 4 of these particles. So there will be 2 problems if we write sa in either of this. So therefore, sa, except for she, follows these 4. When it comes to the usage case of she or je, when it comes to the usage of she or je, if we have a sa, one can use either of these. Okay. So, example. First one, we have the first set, which is xing, shi, xiu, shena, shik. And this is the example for the rules that we have set. So, the rule set says that for the suffix letter nga, na, ma, ha, ra, la, and words without any suffix letter, we use this 5 set of particle. So we see gashing to. In this particular example, gashing to, we see that the suffix letter of this word is ha. And since it's ha, it will be followed by xing. Or she, xiu, shena, shik. Here, xing, because of this particular usage case. We will not talk about this in this class, so I will not talk further on this. So just to understand that because of a particular usage case, this has been xing, but it has been xing. It is not jing or xing because of the suffix letter ha. In this second example, we see nang to lona sang she sung. Since the suffix letter is nga, it is followed by she and not je. Then loto lepo chung sheo. Since the suffix letter here is also nga, it is followed by sheo and not followed by jiao or xiao. 捏去的抗战音写那. Here we see that the suffix letter is na. And since it's suffix letter na, we are using shena and not jena or shena. Rangkim to song shik. Since the suffix letter is nga, it is followed by shik. So we see that in these examples, we see that the particles do follow the rule, which is stated on the basis of the suffix letter of the name or word. And when it follows the name or word here, we see that it follows on the basis of the suffix letter. And all of these follow the rule that was stated there. For example, the first one, Gashintro means happy and delighted. Nang to Lona Sang Shesung means he, she said that return back to your home, or it's good to return back to your home. Third one, Loto Legpo Chung Xiao. It was a good harvest. The fourth one, Ne Tsu Di Kang Zha Yin Xiana, to explain how this issue is thus. Final example, Rangkim to Song Shi, go back to your home. So you can see that you can see in the English translation of these statements that all of these statements have different sort of function. And because of this, you see that all of these 5 have a different usage case. So we're going to discuss it further in the next class. So these examples were provided to state or to depict that these particles do follow, the rules pertaining the association of these particles with the name or word on the basis of the suffix letter. Now the second set of the 5 particles, Jing, Jie, Jiao, Jiena, Jik. So these 5 particles, so the examples, Penna, Sampu Drubjing, Tronanke. Here we see that we know that since this has the suffix letter pa, we're not looking at the post-suffix letter, but the suffix letter, it has pa, so it should be followed by ching, and not shing or shing. Lega chazang ka, jie ka nang. Since we have this word which has ka as a suffix letter, it is followed by the particle jie and not she. Parul to chint, jiao. Since this has the post-suffix letter ta, it will be followed by jiao and not xiao or xiao. Ngopo di kang re jiena. Since this is a confirming particle, so this has ta as a suffix letter. Therefore, it will be followed by jena and not shena or shena. Diru tukchik. Here we see that the suffix letter is ka, and so it is followed by chik. So even in this case, you can see that the rules which are real rules that are pertaining to the usage of the particles on the basis or the association of the particles with the name or the word on the basis of the suffix letter is stated thus. It also it is still being followed here. That it is still maintained here. So the first one, turn sambo drupchi tronanke. It means happiness arose upon the auspicious completion of the task. Second one, lega chazan ka che kana. He or she said that stop all the work. It's more like ordered that, or more like to order someone rather than to say. Then paru to chin cheo, transcended to the other side. Ngopo di kare jena, to tell you what this is thus, or what this thing is thus. Diru tukchik, stay here. So these are examples. Second set. Now the final set, which is xing shik xiu shena. So since we have 4 particles, I've just provided 4 examples here. Though we can also have the same example and use the particle either che or che and make it 5 here. So lega che shin, lega drup. So here we see that this particular word, it has the suffix letter sa. It is followed by the particle shing, and not followed by shing or ching. Koni gyabu se xiao. So since this has the suffix letter sa, it is followed by xiao and not xiao or jiao. Pöge kandra me shena. Since this also has a suffix letter sa, it will be followed by the particle shena and not shena or chena. Lega yakpu chö shik. Lega yakpu chö chik. Since it has the suffix letter sa, it will be followed by the particle shik and not shik or chik. So you see that even in this case, the rules which talks about the association of the particle on the basis of the suffix letter is followed here. So therefore, on this particular nature, we understand that the alternative particles are dependent particles in name, though, like I said, it is dependent particle, but it is not a dependent particle which is stated in the 30. So therefore, it neither belongs to the dependent particle or independent particle, which comes under the 30. Okay, so the first one, lega cheshing, lega drup. Work completed upon completion of work. It means that when one has already done the work, it has already been completed. So the second one, he is the prince. Third one, how to speak Tibetan is thus. Do a good job. So you see that here also, all of these different statements have different function. They show a different, they function to show a different type of meaning. So this is why we understand that in a set of these particles, all of the five different particles have a very significant usage case, have a very important and significant usage case. So you can see here, this is the rule that we have studied. So when it comes to any name or word which has the suffix letter nga, na, ma, ha, ra, la, or it's without any suffix letter, it will be followed by the first set of the particle xing, shi, xiu, shena, shik. When any word or name has a suffix letter ka, ta, pa, or post-suffix letter ta, it will be followed by the second set, which is jing, chi, jiao, jena, chik. When a name or word has the suffix letter sa, except for the particle she, which does not exist. It will be followed by xing, xik, xiu, shena. And so this is the rules of association of alternative particles on the basis of suffix letter, as you have also seen from these examples. So the main purpose of these examples is to show that the rules are followed, and that these rules are followed as same as the dependent particles. Okay, so because we had certain particles which seemed like they did follow of rule, like for example, for the personal particles that we have discussed, it may seem that sometimes it follows the particular rule, but sometimes it may not follow. But here it's not the case. Here we understand that all of these particles follow these rules strictly. Okay, so we have understood that the alternative particles have 14 particles, and that these 14 particles are neither dependent nor independent particles in the understanding of the text of 30, or even in the tree of extant speech. But these are alternative particles. The reason why I have translated it as alternative particles is because not on the direct translation of the word, but rather the usage case. And all of these particles can be used as an alternative for the particles that we have already studied in the usage cases of the particles that we have already studied. So, and then the rules, and therefore, even though it has a nature of dependent particle, meaning that it is bound by a certain criteria. It is called dependent particle just for the name, but it is not a dependent particle and not even an independent particle when it comes to 30 or tree of extant speech. Okay, and the rules stated for the association of these particles with name or word is that any name or word that has a suffix letter nga, na, ma, ha, ra, la, or doesn't have a suffix letter will be followed by the first set, xing, shi, xiu, shena, shik. Any name or word which has a suffix letter ka, ta, pa, or post-suffix letter ta will be followed by ching, chi, chiu, jena, chik. Any name or word which has a suffix letter of sa will be followed by the final set, which is xing, shik, xiu, shena. So in this way, we have understood the usage case of these particles, association with the name on the basis of suffix letter. So this is it for today. So if anyone has questions before I read the final verse, does anyone have any questions regarding today's lesson of the introduction of the alternative particles and the rules of association of alternative particle with names on the basis of suffix letter? So do we have any questions? So no questions? Lasso. And then how they appear. Can you elaborate these particles? Just like I said, we have those inferential as well as the direct usage case. Similarly, some of these particles are definitely things which are added on later. Like I said, there have been other analytical commentaries, not only direct commentaries. There have been other analytical commentaries on the 30, especially from scholars like Smriti Gyanakirti. In those few of those, we see that they have been probably they have been mentioning of these particles. And then we also know that there have been 3 language revisions. Throughout, we have also added some of the particles. So therefore, even though they do not appear in 30, they have been added and play a very important role in enriching the grammatical system. So that is the reason why it was included in the Tree of Excellent Speech. So first I would like to ask if anyone would like to recite. Yes, this we will not we will not talk about this in this class. We'll talk about it in the next class. Like I said, it is the usage case. So every function is usage case. So we'll talk it in the next class. So yes. Like I said, in any case, even if we discuss it in the next class, one should understand that there will be any new usage cases that will be introduced for these particles. They are simply alternative. But yes, when the question that was asked, the function, we will talk about this in next class. So if there's any more questions, you can ask it in the group and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Some of the questions I still haven't answered, I will do them as soon as possible. And if those who have sent me certain recordings or to check, I will do them as soon as possible. So do we have anyone who wants to recite the portion of the Tree of Excellent Speech? Do you have anyone who wants to recite it? If one have memorized it, they can directly recite it. If not memorized, one can just simply read it. Because anyone wants to read it. Do you have anyone? Yes. Yes, please. Thank you. Lasso.
Namo Guru Manju Goshaya. Nama Chotani Mebe, Jambe Yang La Kudune. To me, the share some jube, Nimbo do Sebaracha. Yangi Chawa Seboru, Cheba Iu Eoshi, Sedega so sum juyin, Gang Tanapama Rala Sanam Jinjuju, Tatan Sani Yanjute, Tani Nara La Suntang, Sani Kangapamarto, Katapamanga Unju, Ko Tonopomo, Rolo Soto Ladute, Joshita Duce Ancha. 자유도 단탐매고 셰남민데 제두짤 수라 루드 나라두 라둔 남바두인데 남예니 시두바탕 테니 체갑람라주 사수 카파차타두 야타 나마라라두 아타 타메라탕루 기기기이 잉안보 남예 주바 제자탕 대남사타 제야니 남예 순바 제자테 조추 나마라라키 타바사기 강안키 아타 타메 이당이 강양강 순겐두테 카타파사 차탁양 아나마라 라탁양 아다타메 앙탕양 때때때 숨하제때 나라라사 차타때 다테가 파마 타메람 라사데 톡 컴맘 탐남 팜맘 람람 삼담 질두테 조추라두 캡탕총 라르이 앙강남 깜바 미공공 외케 오 암기공두체 매당 요왕디시인 내래 중공결두테 중공 리tun견에 미툴레 듀라네 자코나주 계단가에 표자대 폐체 민기 통마줄 니니가 단내 배자 타니 두제 구젠탕 체갑 담강야라주 민기 통메 대자니 타니 대마다바탕 남전 신젠니라주 지치 수칸 진자대 신대 내자 지라지 내시 다신 기라지 순이 강사 강구라오 나로 유메 파파마 타베자대 카타나 파타사 파마사탄 차타파 nga rala tamela taja yagu watani chalapa ni jowale mithe papa ampheche ja mani ngeme kaptan jar mami mimme kata kajate mami thoma mimme ju mani waki sejelang chiche sinso anama ata rala tameta 신시 shewo shinaji kata patan chatata jinji jewo jinaji sata misse shemato 신시 shewo shenato laso
So, thank you very much, Cynthia. Very wonderful. Thank you very much. Now, very auspicious. And now I will recite the final verse, uh, and then, yes, definitely, very wonderfully read. So I'll read the final verse, and then after that, we will auspiciously conclude this. So, uh, let me read the verse here. Sikchor sangme lamlani, jube kelden sangpola, siksan tensang jubani, chosan sobe, tapsayin. Let me repeat this. Sikchor sangme lamlani, jube kelden sangpola, siksan tensang jubani, chosan sobe, tapsayin. So what does this mean? It means, O virtuous ones traveling on the path of profound speech, meaning that those who are studying to attain the profound speech, that is on the path of grammar, studying the grammar. To state profound word in meanings and writings is a good method of cultivating the good merits. So here the profound word means that once one have already studied the science of grammar, the best utilization is to use it to either write or read the auspicious words, and to use it for means and methods of not only for self, but for everyone else, to either write essays or articles that makes people think, or analytical articles which thoroughly challenges many concepts. And to do those, one should have profound words, both in meanings and writings. And so those who are traveling on this, O virtuous ones, this particular thing that you are doing is a good method of cultivating good merit. So with this, we have completed our 54th, I think it's the 54th, yes, the 54th lesson on the alternative particles. So thank you very much for joining in, and I hope that it was beneficial to you as much as it was enjoyable to me. And then so if you have any questions, send it in the group or to me. I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. Some of which are not answered, I will answer them as soon as possible. Those who have sent me recordings to review and provide feedback, I will do that also. So please you can recite and revise everything. And like I said, once you're done with the tree of excellent speech, the next commentary that we will do on the same thing, that is very much later, will be much easier because you already have the foundation. So we just have to make the foundation much stronger and then start building upon it. So therefore, revise, recite, ask questions, and this is it for today. And thank you very much. And I hope everyone have a wonderful day, night, and evening, wherever they are. Lasso, thank you, and I'll see you for the next class. Lasso.